Hi, good morning everyone. Trust all of you are safe and sound in spite of the weather conditions in Mumbai and elsewhere today. Today, I'm going to talk about dynamic range. Dynamic range as it pertains to photography. When we talk of dynamic range, we are talking of the difference between the darkest and the brightest tones in f-stops. A dark area reflects very little light, whereas a bright area reflects too much light. So how many stops is the difference between them? That's what is dynamic range. Now, dynamic range can be of a scene, it can be of the human eye, and it can be the dynamic range of your camera sensor. When you talk of dynamic range of the scene, as I just explained earlier, is the difference in f-stops between the darkest and the brightest areas. When we talk of dynamic range of the human eye, is the ability of the eye to see details in the darkest and the brightest areas at the same time. The dynamic range of the camera sensor is the ability of the sensor to record details in the darkest and the brightest areas at the same time. Keep in mind that the dynamic range of the human eye is very, very large. Depending on whom you ask, it ranges between 20 and 22 stops. So let's say about 20 stops. That's a very, very huge difference. The dynamic range of the camera sensor, and I'm talking about the best cameras available today. The dynamic range of the camera sensor is around 10 to 11 stops. Well, again, depends on whom you ask. Certain manufacturers claim that they have 14 and 15 stops, which personally I do not believe. So usable dynamic range of the camera, a high-end camera, is about 10 to 11 stops. Now, why is this important for us to know? When you photograph a scene, for example, the sky is usually very bright and the foreground is usually darker. So, if you expose correctly for the sky, the foreground gets dark, and if you expose correctly for the foreground, then the sky gets overexposed. Some people go in between, take a mean of the two, but that's not the ideal way either. In case you want adequate details in your sky as well as in the foreground in a contrasty scene, it's always better to bracket the exposures. For example, you can have one of the correct exposure, one -1 or -2, and the third one +2 or +1, whatever. So either in 1 stops or 2 stops differences, you bracket your exposures, and then you take those 3 images and put them on your computer, and using an image editing program, you can create what is known as an HDR or high dynamic range image. Some other time, maybe we shall see exactly how to do that. Have a nice day.